Hey, we got a road rant. I want to talk about decoupling relationships. We need to be decoupling relationships. Y'all need to be decoupling relationships. And this is why. Relationships are complicated. And your relationship to a single person could be multiple relationships. So one of the first things we got to do is we have to isolate the relationships. So there are several different types of relationships, obviously. There are romantic relationships, there's friendship, there are professional relationships, there's mentorship, there's leadership, followership, parenthood relationships, childhood relationships. So many. Some people you just have a basic rapport. Some people you're an associate. And the closer the person is to you, the more relationships you have with that person. I say that to say you don't have one relationship with a lot of people. With a lot of people, you have multiple relationships. Multiple. For example, if you're a parent, you have more than just a parent relationship to your child. That comes with, and this is the stuff that comes in a box. With parenthood comes teacher, mentor, nurturer, caretaker, friend, advisor, etc. So you have several relationships to people. And one of the things that can benefit us is to isolate those relationships. And the more you can delineate and the more detailed, the better. Let's say somebody is a person that you play a particular game with, right? That makes him your gaming buddy. But in addition to that, we'll say that's your cousin. You know, he's your cousin and he's your gaming buddy. He's two things. Let's say you have a gaming buddy that is your ex-girlfriend. She's two things. She's your gaming buddy and she's your ex-girlfriend. She's multiple things. And each one of those relationships, is a connection between the two of you. And this is great until it's time to part ways. Then when it's time to part ways, you have to change the list of relationships that you have with any particular person. You have to isolate the relationships that you have. And you have to keep the parts of it that are good for the both of you, that serve you. And you have to discard the ones that are no longer valid or frankly no longer approved. Let's say you had a friend and then you got intimate with that friend. The question then becomes, is it still a friend if the intimacy is over? That's a really good question. Can you isolate those relationships? Can you isolate romantic partner or lover from friendship and have them be two separate things that just so happen to land in the same person? But can you cut off one of those connections and still have the other connections functional? It's not easy. It's not easy. And it's not easy because people don't think about it like this. They don't think about a relationship to a person as being multiple relationships. But it is multiple relationships. And frankly, some of them work and some of them don't work. I mean, you've seen it. You've seen people who all they do is fuck. They can't stand to be around each other for anything other than that. That is the extent of that relationship. And they don't have friendship. They don't have romance. They don't have professional connection or anything else. So as soon as they don't want to sleep with each other no more, that relationship is completely over. But then you'll have other relationships to where the other connections that you have with that person are still good and they still matter. And you can stop sleeping with that person and maintain friendship. You can maintain a professional relationship, but you have to think about it that way. You have to be disciplined in your approach. You have to be disciplined and not to let one relationship entangle another one. You got to be super clear. You've got to be clear in your mind. You've got to be clear in your language, and you got to be clear in your behavior. So you say, look, we have several relationships. To me, you are this, 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 and this. Let's say, for example, a divorce or marriage, let's say. Let's say we're getting divorced. So the husband and wife marriage, husband and wife relationship, that's over. But underneath that, what else did we have? We had friendship. We had co-parenting. Maybe we hung out in the same circle of friends. Maybe we had the same interests. So then the question becomes, what relationships will continue? And sometimes it's none. You can't bear the pain and the strain of seeing a person who you had one type of relationship with, knowing that relationship is over, and just to focus on the current remaining relationship. But if you're divorced and you have kids, or you're divorcing and you have kids, you really need to think about this stuff, because the relationship that was romantic, or should have been romantic, is over. But that doesn't necessarily destroy every other relationship. If you're co-parenting with somebody, and if you're married and there's children involved, and you divorce, the co-parenting relationship still exists. So what are you going to do about that? One of the things that I recommend is for the different parties who are breaking up to remember that their relationships to the children are separate relationships. Your relationship to your stepson is not your relationship to your ex-wife. Your relationship to your stepson is a completely separate relationship. You are a mentor, you are a friend, you are a role model, all these things you are to the young boy. But you're none of those things to the wife. You have 3 different relationships to that child, and none of which you had to the wife. And I say stepson on purpose, because that is where it gets really tricky. Because if there's a biological connection, then there's an assumption of parenthood going forward. But if there is no biological relationship, there's an assumption of no parenthood going forward. And that's unfair. You've been in this kid's life 5, 10 years. He's looking up to you as a father figure, and you break up with his mom. You're not just breaking up with his mom, you're also breaking up with him. If you don't purposely maintain the relationships to the child. And there's no reason why a woman's ex-husband can't be a mentor to her son. There's no reason. It just takes discipline on the part of the adults, because the child's going to be fine with it. The child is going to be relieved that he still has a mentor, he still has a role model, he still has a big best friend, he still has a dude that he looks at and says, this man has traits that I would like to have. But in order for that to work, you have to decouple the relationships. You have to decouple the husband-wife relationship from the father or stepfather and son relationship. And since, stepfather no longer applies when a divorce is finalized, you don't use that word. You just say, mentor, friend, role model. All the other things that came with stepfather without the title. So that's how you handle that. Just be mindful of this. That's all I really wanted to cover on this road rant, is to isolate and decouple relationships. Now you know that you have many relationships to people, and you can isolate them, and you can continue or discontinue particular isolated relationships to the same person while retaining other relationships to that same person. Hope this helps, because people aren't disposable. There's stuff worth salvaging in a lot of these folks.